The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to our Thursday webinar series with AspDotNet Storefront. My name is Mia, hosting your webinar today. Today's topic is Testability and Flexibility, Unit Testing and Dependency Injection in AspDotNet Storefront. Jason Addington, Senior Developer, and Jim Layton, also Senior Developer, will be covering two separate but related topics. First, Jason will go over how to implement dependency injection using AutoFac in AspDotNet Storefront application. Jim will then take that same application and show to set up a unit tests that mock the dependencies we create and allows AspDotNet Storefront dependencies to function in the absence of a web request. And now I'm handing over to Jason Addington.
Hi, I'm Jason. I'm a senior developer here at Vortex, and today I'm going to walk you through a little bit about how to set up AutoFac to do dependency in AspDotNet Storefront. So what we've got here is a standard AspDotNet Storefront 9101 site, and what we're going to try to accomplish is we want to just kind of simply show an example. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the weather at the customer's current location on the cart page. So it's not something that you probably ever want to do in practice, but it shows us how we can use dependency injection to accomplish something that requires two levels of dependencies. So what we've done is we're going to have the shopping cart page depend on this class that we've made here, a temperature retriever, and separately the temperature retriever is going to depend on a web service that that we grabbed off the internet. And that's what gets the weather for us. So, so really quickly, we'll kind of go over what dependency injection is and why you'd want it. Some of you may already be familiar with this. There's lots of frameworks out there, and it's a practice that's gained a lot of traction in .NET within the last couple of years. But dependency injection is the practice of modularizing your software by not requiring your code to know exactly the types of services that it's going to be newing up. So this class here is a standard class that is not set up for dependency injection. And what it does is it news up this weather service. If we were to turn it into an ejected dependency, instead we'd have the constructor where it would be handed a weather service, and then this would use it. That would allow us to be loosely coupled to the weather service. And in the future, you could change out that weather service with some other service and not break your existing code. So it follows the practice of working against interfaces rather than instances of code. And again, it's all about loosely coupling your code and making it very modular. So this is a contrived example. It's really simple. It doesn't show how this would work in a gigantic application, but you can get the concept for how it works. What we really want to do is rather than kind of doing a deep dive into dependency injection and all that, we just want to show you how to get it running on Storefront and the tricks to get a particular framework called AutoFac running, so that you can kind of experiment with it on your own and hopefully come to recognize the value of it and use it in your own software. So so real quick, we'll show how we've done a simple non-injected scenario where we want to show the temperature at the customer's current location on the shopping cart page. So we wrote a simple class. It lives in a separate project down here. We just call it customer temperature. And there's a service reference to this random weather web service that we found on the internet. And what it does is it can get the weather by zip code, and it gets the forecast. And all we do is we actually get the high temperature for today. We discovered over the course of our testing that the service was kind of unreliable, so we unfortunately had to wrap it in a try-catch and fake the temperature if it didn't work. But hopefully for this demo, it will be more reliable than it has been. So we've got the simple class, temperature retriever, which can get the customer temperature. And over on the shopping cart page, we added a literal control inside a div up near the to continue shopping button. And inside page load on the shopping cart page, we just create a new instance of our class, and we tell it to get the temperature for the customer's current zip code. We actually pass in a customer ID, and then it gets it for the current zip code. So there are actually a couple dependencies here. The first is on the storefront customer class, and the second is on the weather forecast class itself. So what we did is we kind of refactored this into an injected version of it, and we didn't remove the dependency on customer because well, actually Jim's going to go into detail on that, but we left that one in place. But what we did do is that we now inject the dependency for the weather service. So before, we would new up the weather service when we wanted to get the temperature. Now what we do is we actually have it handed to us as an interface. So when somebody constructs our class, they give us the service, we store it in a property, and later we just use that property to call the method. Again, I won't get into all the details of how dependency injection works and stuff, but that's the general gist of it. So to get this working in Storefront, we actually have to do a few different things. The first is that we won't directly new up this class in the future. We want to have this class as well injected into our page. So as I said, we're going to use AutoFac as our dependency injection framework. And the easiest way to do that is to, if you've got Visual Studio 2010, Service Pack 1 is to use NuGet with the library package and simply search for AutoFac. And you'll get a big list here, but the one that we're interested in, if it wants to come down, is the AutoFac Web Forms integration package, and that, when you install it, will automatically get all the dependencies for it. Let's try this again. And if you don't have Visual Studio 2010 Service Pack 1, there we go. So you grab this guy here, the AutoFac Web Forms integration. That'll install this one and its dependency on that. But if you don't have this or you want to do it on your own, AutoFac is it's hosted on Google Code. So you just Google AutoFac and you should you'll see it as the top result there, and all the documentation and so forth is here. And I actually really recommend that you read this if you want to use it, because it gives some good guidance on how to do dependency injection. So yeah, you just simply add that reference to your project. So if we look in the bin folder here, we now have reference to AutoFac and Integration Web. And then the second step is to set up your web config to use the modules that the AutoFac integration provides. One of the core tendencies of dependency injection is managing the lifetime scope of your components. So it's important that things are disposed when they're not needed anymore. AutoFac provides some helpers with that, and one of the things it provides is the container disposal object, which helps manage modules that live over the lifetime of the application or over just the request lifetime. Separately, there's this attribute injection module. And what this does is every time it loads up a page, it will look for a special attribute on the top of the page, and when it finds it, it will inject the public settable properties that it knows about into that page. So we'll hop over and kind of show you how that works. So what we did is we set the inject properties attribute on the shopping cart page, and if we make a public settable property for the type that we want injected, when the page loads, AutoFac will actually go and new up this object so that we can use it down here without newing it up ourselves and putting it on the page. So the next trick is telling AutoFac about all of the modules that we care about, so it knows, hey, when somebody's asking for an eye temperature retriever, we actually need to give them this concrete class. So to do that, we make a few changes. One we do into core code just as a convenience, and then the rest are pretty simple changes. The first is that we want to make our own global ASAX code behind rather than using the one built into Storefront. So we modify the global ASAX to point to a global class that we put in app code. We just call it global.asax.cs, but you can call it whatever you want. And the important thing here is to inherit from the storefront global class so that the application still works, and to also implement iContainerProvider accessor. This is part of the AutoFac integration that allows it to allows pages to get to their container provider. We'll go into that in a second. The other change we made to core code was just a simple one. Way down in AppLogic, they have these custom global logics where you can define your own application start and application end and all that. Rather than having to come in here and modify this every time we want to change our registrations, we found it much easier to simply add a static event and to call that event on application start. When we do that, we can actually register a handler for that event in our constructor for our inherited global class. And we can just have this method here that we can edit in app code, saving us the trouble of having to go into AspDotNetStorefront core and recompile every time we make a change. So once we've got that in place, we can actually start telling AutoFac about the various modules that we want to have injected. So in this case, we've done two modules. The first is the web service itself, and the second is our temperature class. And what we do when we register is we're just telling AutoFac, when somebody asks for this interface, provide this concrete class. When somebody asks for this interface, provide this concrete class. This is a really simple example. AutoFac is capable of much more complex injection scenarios. It can support all kinds of collections, and you can tag things with names. It gets incredibly complex what you can do with it, and you can meet almost any scenario. But for now, we're just doing two simple, when you see this interface, give this concrete class. So when the application starts, it's going to come through, make a container builder, register these types, and then make a container provider from that builder. And all the container does is contain this information in such a way that somebody can simply ask for it and they get the type out. This is hidden from us. We actually don't have to interact with the container directly, and that's the preferred way to use AutoFac. That attribute injection module that we set up here will instead, for us, whenever it sees, excuse me, wrong page. Whenever it sees a request on the shopping cart, it will go and it will look up this in the container for us and fill it with the concrete class. So now what we've managed to do is there's no reference to the concrete type on this page. So we have a reference to the interface, and we use that interface, but we don't actually ever have to know the concrete type. We don't ever have to know the constructor parameters. If it has further dependencies, in this case the web service, this page has no information whatsoever about the web service and doesn't have to care about it. It just kind of works. You can imagine in much more complex scenarios where you're injecting, dozens of services, each with their own dependencies. This just simplifies things immensely and makes your change management much easier as well. So let's go ahead and fire up the page and see if we got everything working correctly here. We made the assumption that the currently logged in customer will have a zip code, so we're going to go ahead and log in first so that we can use the zip code set on our customer. Once our page comes up here. There we go. So we'll log in. We'll add a coat to our cart. And that'll take us to the shopping cart page. Eventually. Or perhaps not. All right, well, we'll just go there directly. this is the that's what's going on. We're actually waiting on the web service. Sometimes the like we said, that web service is unreliable, so it's currently querying that that very slow web service, and eventually it'll either time out and give us a temperature of 86, or we'll actually get us the actual maximum temperature here in Ashland, Oregon. I believe the timeout is set to 30 seconds. There we go. So it looks like it went ahead and timed out and gave us 86, but you can see still that the principle is there, that it called through to our the concrete implementation of our interface and spit out the temperature here on the checkout page, or the cart page. So what we could do if we were to go forward is we could actually switch to a different weather service, and I wish I could if I knew of a better one. And as long as it implemented the same interface, it wouldn't impact how this method uses it, because we're just using an interface, and that implementation is being passed in, and we're just saving it. We could change this to be any type of web service as long as it had the same methods on the interface. And the same is true for our temperature retriever class. We've made this interface, which just shows the simple kit customer temperature. And as long as we made any class that implemented this interface, our shopping cart page can use that interface and still get the temperature. So this allows us to, dependency injection allows us to do much more complicated scenarios with much lower cohesion between the classes, which is a really good design principle. And it's really simple to get it set up in Storefront. The main thing that you have to do is just make sure that you set up your global ASAX with